Good morning, guys. Welcome in. How is everybody doing? Welcome in. Welcome, welcome. It is a beautiful Tuesday. How did you guys all do yesterday? Yesterday was one of those trapper days. It was you had to be surgical yesterday. If you did not trade the opening session, you had to be absolutely surgical. It was a surgical session yesterday. I hope you guys did well yesterday. Not going to lie, I think it might have been one of a very difficult session because it probably caught a lot of people off guard. I will say this, I think we were prepared for it. I think we kind of I'm back. I pressed the wrong button. I pressed the starting soon button. I probably scared you guys there. Do not worry, we were fine. But I know I just startled you guys. Anyways, so yeah, I mean it was one of those days that definitely caught people off guard. But I'll say this, the levels held, right? Once we maintained and started building above resistance, we just broke out. We saw some rejections at supply. I took one trade yesterday on SPY. I shorted. I'll tell you what I did yesterday, and I don't think it was. I don't think it was A plus. I don't really think yesterday's session was A plus for me at all. But the only trade I took yesterday was this short right there. I shorted SPY right over here at 684.50 and got a move into VWAP. I was looking for an actual reversal of that session, and it didn't reverse. It ended up ripping. So I got out for a nice win. And that was my day yesterday. But I'll say this: it wasn't as beautiful as it should have been. I probably could have been long at the open yesterday. Once we actually reclaimed above the 950 candle lows here, which is around 681.50, this is where we could have probably flipped into a bull bias. And I actually spoke about this bull bias yesterday. I spoke about how we could have a bull bias above 681.50, and I just didn't do it, right? I didn't get involved in it, and I kind of like let it go. And that ended up being the best trade yesterday. I think it was a long over here at 681.50. And you could see, where did we end up going to? We actually went up into the upper bound of our levels, which was 688, right? That was the daily 21 SMA. And we basically danced around the daily 21 SMA. So if you look back at yesterday's session, it caught people off guard, but it kind of made sense. And it just was a matter of how prepared were you for it, right? Now, granted, I'm happy to come out green yesterday, but today's session, I see some of the same issues with today's session. The same issue with today's session is, can we look for continuation on a gap down? I normally would say yes. Yesterday I said yes. Yesterday my main watch was bearish moves yesterday, right? But we reclaimed. Today's session, I'm going to say the same thing. A lot of the things I'm going to repeat today's session, it's going to be the same thing. And is it right? I don't know. Time will tell. But I still think looking for bearish continuation is the move, as long as we are under 681.50, right? And so that's the theme of today's session, as we know, is if we are under 681.5 on the SPY chart, which is the Friday's lows, then we are still bearish. We are sustaining a bearish mindset under 681.50. And where do we go to? We go into lower bound levels, 671 breaks, we see lower in the market, right? So we're going to talk about this in a moment. I don't want to spend too much time on this right now, but we'll go over the QQQ as well. And the Q's chart was unbelievably an easy read, right? You can see, look at the QQQ chart yesterday's session. We ripped and rallied. I shorted yesterday on the SPY chart using QQQ as a proxy. The reason when I say that, I basically mean, hey, we had SPY was strong, but QQQ was actually pushing into supply. I shorted the SPY chart when Qs were right here, right? So that was where I took a short on the SPY chart. Now, granted, I think that even my trade was still a bit early in the session. The best short was over here at the daily 21 SMA. And that's what the market does. The market is hugging the daily 21 SMA. That was the warning sign we discussed yesterday, and it still seemed to be the case. Now, today's session, even though we were strong yesterday, we were gapping down here pre-market, and I'm going to talk about continuation weakness today, right? Can we break under lows? If we do, we'll see continuation. I don't think it's necessarily bad to think that we continue, right? But we need to have the levels in mind which dictate, hey, we continue, right? And for example, if we see us reclaim, right, above the opening print yesterday's session, then we're probably not going to get continuation downside moves. So we'll talk about that today's session. We are looking for continuation, but there is a caveat. The caveat is we are under our support zones. Okay. So we'll talk about that today's session, right? We'll go over obviously some charts today. We'll go over Amazon weakness, right? Amazon 203. We'll go over the Apple as well. Apple obviously also not a strong day for Apple, right? This is why for me, you look at Apple's chart. I mean, it doesn't really do anything of substance. And I'm happy I did not trade Apple yesterday's session because it just looked weak. You look at AMD also weak. AMD actually sitting at yesterday's lows. Okay. AMD rejected off of the level we spoke about pre-market, where we said, hey, 197, 198 on AMD. That's where we popped up into an AMD. That's basically just rejected off of the PDL, which was Friday's lows. This was probably a better name to trade, but we'll go over this today's session as well. We are going to also go over some other things too, guys. We'll go over Tesla as well. We'll go over Tesla, what's happening here in Tesla. Tesla, a little bit of a pop and fade of 400. This to me is interesting because it broke above 400. Got all the bulls interested. Now we're back beneath it. So we'll talk about this today, also being a watch. Anyways, so let's jump into our chart. I took two trades. I took two trades, guys, but for me, it was just one trade. I mean, it's the same thing, right? If I take a short here, okay, if I take a short right here, and I also take a short right there, I'm not gonna like journal that as different trades. I'm just gonna say this is one trade, right? It's the same thing. If you guys know, I shorted here at 684.50, and then as soon as it wicked into the EMA, I sold right over there at break even. This candle popped up. I shorted this popper candle and got a downside move. That's all that happened, right? Not literally, it's the same trade, right? I'm not going to journal that as two independent trades. When it's the same thesis, the same setup, I'm just going to call it one trade, but then just different executions within that trade. But again, each their own, right? You can call it two different trades if you want as well. Okay, so before I lose my voice, let me get some hydration, and then we'll jump into our charts. Okay. All right. So, first of all, like the stream. I have not said it in a long time, by the way, guys. Where is it? First of all, there's no energy in the chat this morning. There's no energy in the chat. You guys are all sleeping. I have 900 people here this morning, and I don't even know how many likes. Let me just refresh this. Let's just see how many likes do I have here this morning. Of the 900 people here this morning, of 900, we have 234. So we are not looking good in the like count. We're not looking good on the view count. We're looking horrible across the board, and everyone is sleeping in. So, you know what? That's fine. You guys are here, but like the stream, and let's move on. Okay, so this morning, in terms of our economic data, the biggest thing for today's session is the fact that we have motor vehicle sales at a time we don't know. I have no idea what time this is at. It's obviously not important. There's no data today's session. Wednesday, tomorrow morning, we have some data at 8:15. ADP tends to be pretty important, so be careful of ADP tomorrow. Besides that, nothing else on the docket, right? Going into our earnings reports, this is where things become more important. Yesterday's session, or actually, sorry, today, this pre-market session, we had TGT report earnings. I was curious to see where they ended up reporting, and they did report strong numbers, albeit not that strong, right? It wasn't like incredibly blowout earnings, but they are moving higher off that report. So good to see that, but I'm not thrilled. I'm just not thrilled, right? It's fine, right? You look at TGT, right? I still want to see one more pop on TGT before I get out of all my position, and you can see it's selling a little bit pre-market, right? So we'll talk about TGT. Probably not today, guys, because there's not much happening here. I want one more impulse move higher, and I'll be getting out the rest of my shares here on target. Okay. Besides that, BBY also reported earnings. I'm curious, what did they do? BBY, Best Buy. Pretty big beat on Best Buy. So interesting. You are seeing some retail names outperforming here pre-market. So Best Buy moving higher. What else reported earnings? Anything else of interest? I'm curious, how's Walmart? I want to look at Walmart, WMT quickly. Walmart also sitting at that 1 trillion market capitalization level. So Walmart's literally sitting right at this 126 level on WMT is the 1 trillion market cap on Walmart's chart. So it's sitting right at that level here pre-market. You can see right over here, What is Costco doing? COST. I'm just curious to see what retail names are doing, guys, before I jump into the actual charts today. I just want to see what's going on here on these retail names. Okay, so Costco just sitting at that daily 21. Anyways, I've always wanted to buy Costco. I probably should have bought Costco. I know I should have. I know I should have bought Costco here when it sold off and here when it sold off, but I just didn't get filled. I just didn't go low enough. There's going to be a day where I buy Costco. There's going to be a day, but I just don't know when it's going to be. I want to time it well. All these long-term buys for me have to be timed perfectly. It's just not doing it for me. It's just too much consolidation. I want to see, for me to get filled now, I would really want to see, I know it's far away, but I want to see this. This is what I want. I want to see it tap this liquidity down below, right? 800. All right, okay, guys. So let's go into our charts today. Obviously, right, nothing happened here on the earnings side today, besides crowd in the after hours. Okay, and then tomorrow pre-market we have A&F. I want to see how A&F reports. All right, you know what? I don't know how they're going to report, but I'm curious to see what happens. A&F, an interesting one. Obviously, also BULL for you guys who are diamond handing BULL. I know there's got to be a few of you in the chat who are diamond handing BULL. Okay, so let's dive into our charts. Let's start off with the SPY chart. So what happened yesterday on SPY? Yesterday's session on SPY, it was a classic gap and then reclaim and then rip, right? That's what happened yesterday. Basically, we gapped down below. We looked really weak in the pre-market session. We looked actually weak here at 681.50, and then we ripped and rallied higher. Now, I'll tell you this. The crazy thing about yesterday's session was I did well. I came out green yesterday, but I almost took this short right here. This 935 short for me was an absolute short. And that's why that's why trading before 945 is usually not the right idea. Look at this session. Look at this. I remember I said yesterday, I'm not taking a trade before 945. I'll show you something, right? The fact that I didn't take a trade before 945 saved me probably about $3,000 yesterday. Because look at this right here. Most cases, if I saw this happen after 945, I would have 100% taken the short. Look at this move here. I want to show you this for a second. Look at this right now. Obviously, right now you can see it looks bad because it ripped and rallied, but look at the short right now. If you look at it from this standpoint here, this, in my view, is 100% a short on SPY at that moment, okay? And then obviously what ended up happening is it did not work out. And that is why sometimes waiting for a proper read of the market is the better thing to do, okay? It is the better thing to do. Now, when there's no data and there's nothing crazy, fine, you can take those trades early on in the session. But when you have that 945 data, one of the best advice I was ever given is just wait till after the 945 data, right? Wait till after it, right? Because the market will show you itself. It will show you itself. And if you don't get it at the exact top or the exact bottom, I'm sure there will be some trend you can trade off of, an 8 EMA or VWAP or something you can trade off of to get the overall trend. And the overall trend yesterday's session was strong, but into supply. So we had the supply over here at 681.50, which is our key level. And then, of course, what ended up happening here on the SPY chart was we broke above it, right? We saw us actually reclaim above that level and maintain above the 681.5. We maintained. And then finally, we pushed into the next leg of supply around the 685s. We moved down lower off that level. And then finally, one last push into close. And that last push into close pushed us into which level? The daily 21 SMA, in which case we sold off yet again off that level. And here, pre-market session, we have some more news, some more crazy things happening in the Middle East, and of course, another gap down in the market. And this gap down in the market looks oddly similar to the gap down we've seen over here March the 2nd, right? A very similar price action from this session happening here pre-market. Now, I'll say this. Yesterday's session, I said, let's look for retest rejections here at 681.5. If we are beneath this level, we are bearish. Today's session, it's the same thing. Just because it didn't work perfectly yesterday, it doesn't mean that's necessarily the wrong idea. The right idea in my book is still, this is a downside move in the market, okay? And as long as you're underneath 681.5, this level right over here, we are looking for downside moves this morning, and we're looking for a move lower, okay? So that's my expectations today. Now, where is the short today here on SPY's chart? The short that I'd be watching for is as long as you're under 676, I would say we go lower, right? So as long as we're under this level over here, we go lower. Where do we go lower to? 671. That's the first thing I see in the market. If we do get back above the pre-market highs, 678, which I'll have marked out as a smaller level now. I did not mean to do that. As a smaller level now, right over here. I'll have this marked out as a dotted line on my chart. The reason why it's a dotted line on the chart is because it's a pre-market high, right? But it's also the opening print from yesterday's session. So I know this. I know that if we do see us break above 678 today, right, then we're going to go higher into 681. We'll do the little gap fill play just like we did yesterday's session. We'll get this type of price action right over here. But as long as we move into this supply here at 681.5, it's still a short and a top watch for shorts. Even if we rip today on a trending move higher above 678, I am still looking for shorts at 681.5. That's the idea. Yesterday, I was saying the same thing. Today, I'm maintaining that idea. That's the only thing I can see today's session because it is still a weaker pre-market. It's a weaker gap down. It's a weaker hourly chart. The idea here is still 1 hour chart bearish. And we're not going to change that idea off of a few 5-minute candles. So that's my view today's session. Now, the one thing I will say too is if we move into 671 as well, 671 we know is the 20. I should not be drawing like that because no one will understand what I'm saying. This is the 2026 lows. I'll write it out. The 2026 lows. So what does that mean for SPY? If we tap 671 today, you're going to have a lot of buyers sitting there. There's going to be a lot of open orders sitting there. You probably see some crazy reactions, some crazy volume candles at 671. But if we break below 671, what does that mean for the market? This is super important. If we break below 671 on SPY, that means that we are red year to date on the S&P 500. That is going to do what? Algorithms are going to go crazy. Lots of high volume sells. All over Twitter, they're going to be news tweets. Boom, boom, boom. Headlines, CNBC, red in the year, right? That's what's going to happen. As soon as we tick below 671, you're going to see a lot of algorithmic responses to us breaking below 671. Why? Because that is the low of the year, right? So zoom out for a second on the 1 hour chart, on the 4 hour chart. And if you zoom in, right, look at this precise low over here from the Thursday the 5th. Thursday the 5th, we have not broken it yet, right? But if we do break below 671, we get a channel break and we are also breaking beneath the 2026 lows. I am just trying to make sure you guys understand how important that level is in the market. If we do break beneath it, expect a lot of high volume, right? But we should move lower back into 665s, 660, okay? Assuming we don't dance around it and trap people below it, right? Assuming there's no traps, barring all the traps, we break it, we see lower. That's what the market's saying to us. On the QQQ chart, what are your levels on the Qs chart? On the Qs chart this morning, it is the same idea, okay? And I think it actually is more clear this morning. Look at the QQQ chart. This, in my opinion, if you were trading Qs yesterday, I think you probably did pretty well because this is what happened yesterday. Yesterday's session, we moved from our breakout level at 600. We reclaimed, we filled the gap up higher. We moved into precisely the daily 21 SMA, right? This is what I was saying. This was the warning signs yesterday we spoke about. We said two things pre-market. We said either scenario one, which would be the better scenario, we gap and go, we see downside. I would have loved that. Scenario two is we hug the daily 21 SMA as we always have. Now, we hugged it yesterday. We kissed it yesterday. Now we are back down lower. And the thing today I would say is I am mostly looking for continuation shorts today. If we can break below 593, continuation shorts into 588, into 581. If we do push higher today, I'm still watching 604 for rejections and 610 for rejections. If we break above 610, if a crazy news story comes out, Trump says yada yada yada, right, and the market rips today, 610 breaks, then we are no longer bearish anymore. The bearish thesis is removed above 610 on Qs. On SPY, the bearish thesis is actually a bit closer. It's 681.50, right? So we know what our levels are, which enforce our bear thesis. It's 681.5 on SPY and at 610 on the QQQ. On the ES chart, I want to go back in the ES chart for a second. On the ES chart, again, this is important. I want to make sure you guys understand this. The 6750. Oh, we are actually at the 20. Are we at the lows here? We are at the lows here pre-market session. This is incredibly interesting. Okay, hold on a second. Pause for a second. I want to just do something quick. I want to make sure we're in the same. We are. Okay, we are right there. The ES chart is at the 2026 lows pre-market session. That is incredibly interesting, right? So we know this is where things become frothy, right? 67.50 on the ES chart is the 2026 lows. On SPY, it's a bit further away. You can see SPY, we are not quite there. It's 671 on the SPY chart. Why that discrepancy? I don't know. I'm not too sure why. But again, we know that this is where we're watching for. This is the level we're watching the ES chart, 6750. I would actually put more emphasis on this level today. This would be the level I put more emphasis on. 6750 on the ES chart, probably more reliable than SPY this morning. Let's see how the market reacts to it. And we're sitting at that level pre-market this morning as well. 6800 also important level. I remember I said 6800 ES. That 6800 ES level is the equivalent of SPY 678. Okay, so SPY 678 is equivalent to 6800 ES, which we know is our level to watch out for this morning. Okay, so that is what we have on the docket for this session on SPY, ES, and QQQ. Obviously, I'm spending more time recently on indices than I usually do because it's important, right? This is incredibly important stuff. The IWM, a trapper yesterday, right? An absolute trapper yesterday. I could not tell you what happened on the IWM. But you look at this chart, I told you guys, as long as we're under 260, this is possibly the best short in the market. Now, granted, if you shorted 260, you probably still came out okay, right? Because it did react off 260 multiple times. But I'll tell you this, it trapped up those longs yesterday. Look at this. Beautiful rejection at 260. Pushed into it, fail. Pushed into it, fail. This was a clear short on the IWM yesterday. We then broke above it. For whatever reason, the market wanted to go higher. It broke above it. We saw some upside in the market. But this morning, where are we? We're still below 260. So I'll tell you this, even though yesterday's session, it didn't work out beautifully, right? Obviously, I would love to tell you guys things where the market just taps a level, like I say, 260, and it just fails it, and it continues. That would be the best case scenario. Talking about a short that worked like this yesterday is not really optimal, right? This is not like a sexy short, but it doesn't mean that it was wrong, right? The levels are still rejecting, and our bias is still short as long as we are sub 260. The idea of the IWM being short bias under that trend has not changed, right? You can see, look at the trend here. I know it's still early stage. I know things are still developing here, but as long as we are sub 260, it is bearish. If we reclaim 260, then we are back bullish again. So just like yesterday's session, you could have been short yesterday at 260 for a downside move, but then once you reclaimed it, you could go back long, right? This morning, it's the same thing. You can short the 260. I think it's still a valid short this morning. You can look for lower. You can look for sub 250. But if the market does reclaim 260, you know where we're going. We're going higher on the IWM. Where? Probably back to that daily 21 SMA, which the market seems to love recently, right? So that is my view on the indices this morning, on the ETFs, IWM, Qs, ES, SPY. Let's now move into our equities, and we'll have a beautiful session. Okay, so I want to take another hydration break. We're gonna take our intermittent 5 breaks. We'll do 5 breaks throughout 35 minutes. So someone do the math. NVIDIA. We'll go over NVIDIA. Pinterest as well, sure. Okay. Am I lagging? I'm gonna crash out if I'm lagging. Hold on a second. That bothers me. My biggest pet peeve is lag. I hate lagging. I am lagging. Actually, I am lagging a little bit. Can I show you guys something? Will you guys see this? No, you can't see it. My OBS is hidden. You can't see it. Damn. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can. No, I can't. I wanted to show you guys my OBS so you can see that I'm not tripping out, because it genuinely is showing red right now. I'm missing 11% of my frames, so I don't know how bad that is, but it says it's red. Anyways, doesn't matter. What are you gonna do? It's not that bad, actually. Usually it's much worse. So we're far better than we were. But we're basically 2 weeks ago, we were like 40. 2 weeks ago, we were missing 40% of our frames. Today, we're only missing 10%. So that's still a big improvement. Okay. All right, let's jump into it. Let's go over our equities. Let's start off with the first equity of today's session, NVIDIA. NVIDIA's chart. So NVIDIA, an absolute wham. Basically, we moved into nothing and we rejected off of nothing, right? Nothing's really happening here on the NVIDIA chart. I would say this, The 186 rejection still looks very valid to me, but it's far away, and we didn't even get close to it yesterday's session. So I would still keep this on the back burner. I know that it's a bit far away, but 186 is a very important pivot for me. It's also, as you guys know, the daily 21 SMA. So the daily 21 lining up perfectly at 186. If we do, for whatever reason, pop higher into this daily 21, which is 186, I would eye for a short here at this level. I know it's far away. It's probably unlikely to happen, but that's my top watch for shorts on this NVIDIA chart. The only long I have in NVIDIA is if we reclaim 186, which then we move back into highs again. But as of right now, we are still sub 186, so I'm looking for shorts. The other watch would be if we broke below 175. This is not a setup I'm really watching today, but sub 175, we move into 170 on this NVIDIA chart, right? And that's how you know there's big support down below. So right now, NVIDIA is mostly bear-sided. A lot of these equities look the same this morning. The equities this morning are bear-sided for the most part, right? You can see lower high, lower high, lower high. Now either another lower high forms here around 186, or we see us, actually that technically wouldn't even be a lower high because this is a lower high over here. So this is a chart that I don't want to trade, right? But sub 175, I think we see lower. I think that's the top watch we should have for today. If you're going to watch NVIDIA off of anything, watch NVIDIA under 175 for shorts, back in 170. Just be careful of 170 because there obviously is big support down there, down below, right? Not a top watch, but I wanted to talk about this levels here, right? AMD, I think, is more clear this morning. AMD is abundantly more clear, okay? AMD was weak yesterday. And the reason why it was weak was because it actually tapped a very key level, 197. So if you guys recall from our pre-market yesterday, we spoke at 197 rejections. And that's what happened. We moved into supply yesterday, which was this 197, 198 supply. And we began forming rejections here. Now I would say this, in the intraday, it didn't really pay off that much. You can see it didn't really give you much continuation, much free flow, because it was later on in the afternoon session, which actually gave you that 197 rejections. But today's session on the AMD chart, there is a very big level down below. The big level down below is 186 flat. It is the most important level on AMD, 186. This is going to define what we do probably for the entire month of March, how we respond to 186. If we break below 186 on AMD, we are going lower into this low over here at 164, right? That's what we're going to. Under 186, we're going into 164. However, we are still above 186. So even though yesterday's session we moved off of supply and we're gapping down pre-market, be very careful of shorting back into 186 today. 186 is still an incredibly important pivot today's session. 186 support, 198 resistance. Under 186 support, we move into 165. Not in one session, right? Don't call me tomorrow morning and say, Brett, you said we're going to 165 and we didn't, right? No. Under 186, that's where things become aggressively trending down lower. But as of right now, it's still maintaining, right? So yesterday I said watch shorts here. Today's session, I'm saying don't be short back over here. That's all I'm saying here in AMD's chart. Nothing else besides that. On the SMH, what is the SMH doing? The SMH is at 390 support this morning. Very simple. What does SMH do? It's defined by what it does here at 390. Do we hold 390? If then we see an upside move like this. If we fail 390, if then we see a downside move like this. We are at again, another important inflection point on semiconductors. This is the semiconductor ETF. Either we're going to rip and rally off 390, which would move us back into these highs over here at 4 or 5, or we're going to fail aggressively and move down lower. Pre-market, we look pretty weak. I would say pre-market, this looks weak and mostly short-sided. But we need to see us actually break below 390 for that continuation of free flow. That's what we know. Sub 390, continuation. We hold 390. We move back into the daily 21 SMA here on this chart. Moving on. Amazon. So on the Amazon chart, again, a lot of these equities look the same. They're weak. They're either weak or they're consolidating. Here on Amazon, like I said, the past few days in a row, I probably sound like a broken record the past few days in a row. But the reason why is because nothing's really happening, right? Amazon isn't really doing anything of importance recently. It's been stuck. Yes, we still have the bear flag in play. The bear flag is still obviously setting up. The bear flag is still there. But we need to see us break below 203 for real continuation. If we can break below 203, there is a short setup today into 197. That's all I have today, guys. Under 203, short side setup into 197. Above 212, long side setup into 228. Anything in between this range, between the box here and the box there, and I'll make it an orange box, is this is my graveyard zone. What does that mean? We haven't talked about graveyard zones in a long time. What this means basically is this is where traders go to blow accounts. This is where traders go to lose all their money. I will lose money here. Even myself, I will lose money here. If I trade on Amazon between 203 and 212, I will lose money literally, right? I have no edge here. My edge is going to be either a continuation move above the highs or below the lows. If you are a channel trader, fine, by all means, go crazy. But if you are a trend trader who needs trend to win, I don't get involved here. Under 203, this is where I'm looking for shorts. Above 212, I'm looking for longs. Okay, so that's what I'm looking for today's session here on Amazon's chart. That's all I have here on Amazon. Moving on, Apple. On the Apple chart, what do we have on Apple? Apple, again, I said this yesterday. I also maintain this idea of there is no setup here in Apple, right? There are some, you have to understand something. I can't make setups happen, right? There are some times where I show you tickers and I just show you the levels. Amazon, there's a setup, right? You can see there's a setup on Amazon if it actually does continue. AMD, there's a setup. Apple, there's no setup yet. Apple is in this tightly bound wedge here. And for me to tell you guys what Apple is going to do today would be a disservice to you because I'd be giving you bias that has no meaningful thesis behind it. Apple is just sitting in a channel right now. It's sitting basically at the midpoint between it's sitting here. You have right in the middle, you have your daily 21, right over here in the middle. You have your extreme highs and your extreme lows. Anything could happen here and it wouldn't surprise me. And when I have a chart that looks like that, it's a chart that I usually don't trade. Now, there have been times where we've had a very good read on Apple bias, right? Remember, we back in late February, we were talking about Apple longs day in and day out, right? And it moved from 259 all the way to 275. And then once it moved to 275, I said, guys, the long has elapsed, right? The long has moved. We're done with this chart. We're not trading it anymore. And since then, it's sold off. It's a dead chart until it eventually makes an impulse move. Wait for it to show us what it's going to do. Then we'll develop a thesis and a plan behind it. But for now, for me, I'm leaving this alone, right? That's what I see here in this chart. Again, if you want my levels though, I'll chart it briefly so you can see it. I have 258 as support below. I have my resistance around 176 and change. And that's all I have in this chart. And maybe a midpoint level here around 267, which also lines up with that daily 21 SMA, right? That's all I have here on the Apple chart, okay? Moving on, let's go over some other names. Netflix, beautiful trend break. This is awesome to see it. I don't know if you guys saw this morning, but did you see what happened to Paramount? I think it's PSKY. Paramount downgraded to a junk rating this morning. Paramount downgraded to a junk rating. Do you know why this is happening? I don't know if you guys are aware of what's going on here, but basically Paramount is in a bid to buy Warner Brothers, right? And so what's happening here is they are now way over leveraged, okay? This is a company that I think PSKY is trading at 30 billion market capitalization, and they're bidding out. They're bidding for over 80 billion, right? They're way overweight here, okay? And so PSKY was just downgraded substantially by multiple ratings agencies, and it makes sense. These guys are over leveraged, and what does that mean for Netflix? I'll tell you this. I'm gonna say this right now. You can quote me on this. We'll come back in 5 years. Because I don't know if it's not going to be a month thing or a 2 month thing or a 3 month thing, but come back in 5 years. I think I'm right about this. Netflix is going to end up picking up the scraps from PSKY when it goes overweight. Because when this blows over, right? When PSKY doesn't have the financials to support a deal like this in the long run, right? Who's gonna end up buying them out and picking up the scraps from basically probably 50% off, 40% off? It's gonna be Netflix. So that's why Netflix is gonna win this battle. Netflix is much stronger financials, and for me, this from a technical standpoint also looks really good. But seeing PSKY get downgraded today kind of reinforces the idea that even though Netflix lost the Warner Brothers deal, they're gonna get it in 5 years, right? They're gonna get it. Why? Because PSKY is way overweight. Okay, so that's the Netflix chart. which obviously still looks good. TGT also reported earnings this morning. Obviously, nice report, but nothing crazy, right? My intrinsic value on TGT, just so you guys know, is 123, right? So I think the stock is worth 123. We're very close to it right now, so that's why I'm basically scaling out of my equities. From every push higher, I scale out of my equities. SoFi, SOFI, moving off of a big support yesterday's session, 18.0, 17.0. There's big demand over here on the 4-hour chart. You can see huge level of demand here. The question is, can it actually continue off of support, right? Big technical setup here, big technical demand. Can it continue? Time will tell, right? Let's go over Tesla briefly, guys. It's 9:10. It's late. I have to leave, but we'll go over the last few tickers briefly. On the Tesla chart, 383 demand below, 400 supply above. That's all I have here in Tesla. Meta chart. Meta, the channel, guys. Look at the channel. I mean, it doesn't take Brett to come on the live stream and tell you what to do here. You see the channel, guys. It's 661 resistance and then 630 support. That's all it is. That's all it is, guys. So you know what I'm going to say here. In between the channels is your graveyard zone. If you can get above 630, 663, right? 662, this will give you continuation. If we break below 630, this gives you continuation. I would be watching this. I actually would really be watching this. If we can break below 630, this would be a top watch for shorts. Anyway, guys, thank you all for joining in. I appreciate everybody here. Have a happy and safe trading session. Good luck and have fun. Bye, guys.